Hey guys, good morning. Happy Monday. This week we are going to be doing a review of traits. We already did that this year and y'all did really well with that. So hopefully this is an easy week for y'all. But if there was anything you missed that week or you just were not understanding it still at that time, then this is going to be a great review week for you. So let's just jump right into it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with the vocabulary. Make sure y'all, as usual, understand what we're even talking about. All right, so our first word is the word trait. A trait is a single characteristic of something that helps to define it, okay? So some traits of this little crab right here are its crab legs, the shape of its body, its little pinchers, okay? Those are all characteristics that define the fact that it is a crab. Some traits on yourself could be physical features, like your eyes, your arms, your body, the way your face looks. And then you can also have character traits inside, like maybe you're a really honest person, or maybe you're a really loving and kind person, okay? Those are also traits. Our next word is the word inherited, and to inherit something means to pass from parent to offspring during reproduction. So for example, this little baby zebra inherited the same stripes as its mama, okay? Some of y'all have inherited some outside traits from your parents or family members. I think I've told y'all this before. For example, I inherited basically my dad and my grandma's whole face. I look just like them. I'm gonna show y'all a picture in a minute of my grandma when she was my age. And then we can also inherit inside traits as well, character traits. So maybe you have a really disorganized parent and you seem to be a bit disorganized. That's normal, okay? You probably got it from them. Or maybe you have a really organized parent and you are super organized. You probably inherited that from that parent. The next two words together are learned behavior. And remember, a learned behavior is behavior that is acquired through experience. So for example, this dog probably wasn't born knowing how to run through these sticks, but he was able to learn how over time. Just like y'all did not know how to do school when y'all first started school. You may not remember it very well, but back in pre-K and kindergarten, I guarantee y'all spent most of that year just kind of learning how to sit in a chair, learning how to listen, learning how to share with others. Lots of learned behaviors happening at school, y'all, good and bad. Okay, the next word is the word offspring, and an offspring is the child or offshoot from a parent. So you are your parent's offspring. Adaptation. We just spent a whole week talking about this. I'm not even going to talk about it because basically adaptations are traits. All right, reproduction. Reproduction is the act of making copies or similar versions of something. So obviously we're not photocopying, roosters and chickens over here, but they are able to reproduce and create offspring that look a lot like them and are the exact same species as them. Okay, and I guess that's our last vocabulary word. All right, let's go ahead and jump into our article. Okay, we've read this before, so I'm just going to kind of skim through. I'm not going to read it word for word. Oh, hold on. What am I doing? Okay, but first I did promise y'all this picture. Look how crazy this is, y'all. So that's my grandma back in the day. Doesn't she look like me, or I look like her? See, I inherited lots of traits from this beautiful woman right here because she gave a lot of her traits to my dad, who then gave them to me. So yeah, fun fact of the day. I know y'all don't ask for these, but I'm just full of them for you. Can y'all tell I'm on coffee? Okay, here we go. Let's keep going. All right. Look at the mother polar bear and her cub. What are some things they have in common? Oh. Okay, sorry. Fur that looks white. They both have black noses, and both bears have large paws with sharp claws. The two bears also have things in common that you can't see in the picture. The mother and her cub hunt seals for food. They're both good swimmers, and they also have an excellent sense of smell. So remember when we talked about this, we discussed all the traits that the polar bear could have potentially gotten from its mother, inside and outside, okay? And I want y'all to take a minute to reflect on some traits that maybe you inherited from your parents. They can be on the outside or they can be on the inside. Cool, cool. So the older you'll get, the more similarities you're going to start to see between you and your parents, as much as you like or hate that. Okay. I used to really not like that. It's so funny because things that used to bother me that my mom and dad both do, I catch myself doing now. And maybe it's learned, maybe it is inherited. I think it's kind of half and half. But y'all are going to start to notice the older you get that you've inherited a lot more than you think from your parents and even your grandparents and sometimes aunts and uncles. Okay. So parents and offspring, aka you and your parents, are also alike in many ways. A lot of times you guys share certain features or traits. Sometimes I will, meet y'all first. I don't always meet your parents before I meet y'all. And then, as the year goes on, I end up meeting your mom or your dad, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you are their twin, okay? A lot of times you and your parents do share a lot of features or traits or just a couple, but most of the time you can kind of tell, at least between one of your parents, that y'all are related, okay? Now, when it comes to animals, a lot of these traits will help these organisms survive in their environment. So we talked about camouflage, and obviously the polar bear is white, okay? Its fur is white, and that helps it blends in with the snow, okay? And it also helps it keep warm in its cold habitat. Another trait that we can't see that polar bears have is that the mother bear's sense of smell helps her to find food when she's hunting. Okay, and that is also a trait that is passed down. Okay, that's just kind of an instinct that most bears have. But if I understood it correctly when I read up on everything this morning, there are some bears that do need to learn how to hunt because it just doesn't come as natural to them as it does to other bears. Okay, if I can scroll down, I'll keep going. Okay, so quick review on inherited traits. Inherited traits are passed from parents to offspring during reproduction. So many of your external features are inherited, animals as well. So for example, this is why different groups of organisms look so different. A flamingo inherits long legs and a long curved neck from its parents. An eagle inherits sharp claws and a sharp curved beak from its parents. You inherited a lot of traits from your parents as well, okay? So those are some external examples on the outside. Okay, other organisms that pass on inherited traits, what the heck? Inherited traits other than animals and humans are plants. So for example, plants can pass on leaf shape and size. So for example, I just said for example like 10 times. For example, for the 11th time, a maple leaf is wide and a fern leaf is long and narrow. These leaf shapes are inherited from the parent tree. Okay, now learned behaviors. So, oh, sorry, let me cover this piece right here real quick though, actually, before we keep going. Okay, so some inherited traits are not about looks, but what an organism can do. So those are gonna be your internal features or traits, things that we can't necessarily see, just by looking once and looking away. These are a little more in depth. So for example, some organisms like plants inherit the ability to make their own food. We already know what process that is. That's called photosynthesis. Cats, such as lions and tigers, inherit the desire to hunt for food. Like I said with bears, that's just an instinct that they are born with. House cats may hunt birds or mice, even though their owners give them pet food. I don't know if y'all have any house cats at home, but I personally don't here. My mom does back at our house in El Paso. And sometimes her cat will bring her birds and just bring them inside the house that are dead. And I've heard that that's like, the cat is bringing it as a gift to you. We don't really accept it as a gift, but hey, even though they have food at home, they still tend to hunt things sometimes, and they like to bring you their treasures. So scientists think that even facial expressions are inherited. I definitely agree with that because me and my parents, we making the same faces. And then lastly, people who are born blind still naturally smile and frown even without seeing other people do it. And I do completely agree with that. Nobody ever has to teach you really how to smile or, how to make a sour face when something tastes nasty. It just kind of happens. So that's that. Okay, moving on to learned behaviors. Learned behaviors are not passed from parent to offspring. So for example, a dog that can do tricks, They usually have to learn that. An animal that can jump through rings, like if you ever go to SeaWorld or go watch the circus, you can see lots of different animals doing lots of different learned behaviors when they're doing those tricks. 9 times out of 10, that animal had to be taught how to do those tricks. They weren't just born knowing how to do them, okay? 9 times out of 10. I'm sure there are some exceptions somewhere in the world. So these behaviors did not come from the organism's parents. They were not inherited. These behaviors were learned. Learned behaviors are changes made by an organism in response to its environment, okay? So parents or other adults can help teach their offspring learned behavior. For example, human parents often teach children certain manners, such as sitting up straight or saying please. I'm working on that with Sayla right now. They're not always born with these manners, and they have to learn them. Okay, just like sharing. This is something you see a lot if you have little brothers and sisters, like chiquitos, they're a lot smaller than you. They're still learning how to share. Like, they don't understand the concept of not everything is theirs, you know? And that's a lesson that takes a long time to learn sometimes. There are some learned behaviors that you can learn in a day. Maybe you've never lied before. You heard somebody lie one day. Oh, there you go. Now you're going to start lying. Not a good learned behavior, but it can happen. And there's other learned behaviors that take a while. Maybe you're somebody who just kind of naturally lies a lot. You just sometimes lie just because you feel like it. So to get out of that habit, you have to learn how to be honest, and it takes a while. Same with, like I said, sharing. You can see that it'll probably take a while to help your brothers and sisters learn how to share. Yesterday, they may have shared just fine, and today everything is theirs and they don't want to, okay? That's because sharing is a learned behavior. Somebody has to teach them. It takes practice. It's not always just automatic, okay? Another example is reading. Reading is not an inherited trait, and I am a strong believer that that also has to do sometimes with your parents, okay? For example, I had a friend in college who did not like to read whatsoever. She just didn't enjoy it. And her parents didn't really like to read either. They would listen to audiobooks instead, or listen to articles being read, or listen to things a lot because they just understood that a bit better. But when they would sit down and read, kind of all 3 of them claimed that they just had a really hard time remembering what they were saying. So that trait was kind of inherited. In the sense that reading just does not come easy to them and they don't understand it very well, but they still learned how to read anyways. And I don't know why I got into that whole story, but reading is a learned trait, basically, okay? Now, if you don't enjoy reading or it doesn't come easy to you, that may be inherited, but the act of reading itself is something you have to learn how to do. All right. Okay, so we kind of did this activity in class. We drew pictures of ourselves and we labeled all of our inherited traits and our learned behaviors. So that's kind of what this is a little bit. Okay. We talked about this a little bit in class, so I'm going to touch on it now. But if you have ever heard of animal breeders are people who help other animals basically reproduce, either so they can sell the baby animal, so they can make a farm with food, so they can use those animals' fur for different things. There's lots of different reasons that animals breed. They even do it sometimes if an animal is going extinct, if they can get a hold of a mother animal and a father animal and help them do what they got to do, so that the population does not go extinct. That's another reason why they breed, okay? So why do some sheep produce more wool than others? Why do some dogs have floppy ears and some have pointed ears? In many cases, humans have changed the traits these animals have over time. Humans that work with animals' inherited traits are called animal breeders. Animal breeders change inherited traits by choosing which animals they should reproduce. So maybe you were walking down the street one day, and you know how people set up their little puestecitos with puppies or whatever they're giving away, and you saw a really interesting like Pomeranian Chihuahua weenie dog mix. Normally those don't go together, right? But somebody got together the right animals needed, maybe a mama that was half Chihuahua, half Pomeranian, and a daddy that was weenie dog, put them together, and now they have produced this new breed of dog that's a Chihuahua Pomeranian weenie dog, okay? And it's very rare, very different. They can probably sell it for a lot of money. So you can even kind of create new species technically by breeding. You will run into problems, but that's a whole other lesson. But that's another reason why people breed, is maybe to make something a little different. Maybe they want, I've seen this be done before, where in like a pack of pit bulls or boxers, there's like one that comes out really blonde or really red. So in order to get more blonde or red-headed puppies, they may find a mother and a father that both have those traits and help them reproduce, so that they make a whole litter of red-headed puppies, hopefully, or lots of blonde puppies, hopefully, or however, okay? So basically, sometimes breeders choose two parents with very different features in order to produce offspring with a unique mix of traits, okay? So animal breeders work with many different types of animals. For example, they breed horses to produce offspring that can run really fast. They breed farm animals to produce offspring that produce more of the goods that humans use, just like milk and wool. And like I already mentioned, they also work with threatened or endangered species in zoos. They try to help those animals produce offspring so that the species can continue and not go extinct. Okay, and that's it for that today. So the last thing I'm going to leave y'all with is just your homework for the week. So let's go ahead and go to the packet. Okay, I've lost track of page numbers. It'll be on the Google Drive. Okay, I think this is page 33. So you're going to answer the questions starting on page 33, questions 1 through 5. Okay, and you'll stop at question 5. And then we're going to go to our activities. Okay. And you're going to do this part 1 activity, part 1 traits cards, and I'll have everything you need up on the Google Drive as well. Okay. You do not have to do part 2, so you can cross that out. And that's it. So again, you're doing questions 1 through 5, starting on page 33. Okay. And then you're doing part 1 traits cards, and I will have those materials up by the end of the day today. You are not doing part 2 student traits. So you can stop on page 39, and that's it. Alrighty. How do I get back to Zoom? Okay, so I don't think y'all saw that. Let me show you one more time. All right, questions 1 through 5. Part 1, traits cards. Do not do part 2. Cool. All right, so that's it for today, guys. I will see y'all tomorrow whenever we get on Zoom Live, and have a great rest of your Monday. Bye.